Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. On the hazardous weather graphic, wind advisories continue here through the central interior of the state, roughly from Tanana over to the Fairbanks area and portions of the Koyukuk and upper Yukon valleys. That's out for tonight until 4 a.m. tomorrow morning for gusts 15 to 25. With possible gusts to 35 miles an hour. So far today, Fairbanks, for example, seeing gusts to about 25 miles an hour, as did Tanana, 20 to 25 mile an hour gusts observed here through the Koyukuk and over to the upper Yukon Valley areas. And moving on to the breakup map, you can see some open water here occurring now along the Porcupine River, and Yukon mostly open all the way down to about there, which I believe is Nulato, and then progressing on out, the white area there getting narrower by the day past Holy Cross now, but not quite all the way out. And northern rivers also opening up. Koyukuk here has quite a bit of mostly open along it, and there to the these northwest, or the rivers up here to the north starting to break up as well, but the north slope needs a little longer. So moving on to the satellite imagery, you can see the next front out here over the trying to push into the western Aleutians. We've got an upper disturbance here tracking south and westward, and that's sort of keeping this portion from pushing any farther to the north and kind of holding it back. And so the big push is off to the east and southeast, and another system dropping southward here. As you can see, really washing out this afternoon, just some scattered showers here over the eastern Aleutians. Otherwise, some breaks occurring over the central part of the Bering Sea back to the northwest. And this system here, bringing some moisture to St. Lawrence Island, has dropped southward. St. Paul picking up snow, which changed to rain this afternoon here with this batch of clouds here as it continues to drop southeastward. And then low pressure southeast of Kodiak Island, producing southeast flow there in advance of that, and that pulling all that moisture up to the North Gulf Coast, back to Kodiak Island, the Alaska Peninsula area, some of that getting into Bristol Bay, and of course the rainy day throughout Cook Inlet and the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound. More showery type weather up to the Alaska Range, but north of the mountains, nothing falling at all up there. Generally just cloudy skies, mid and high level clouds. Looks like some clearing farther to the north, extended back to the west here. Arctic coast, other than some patchy, little bit of fog and flurry condition, which is pretty persistent over toward Kaktovik and Barter Island this afternoon. Remainder of the area, pretty nice, light winds, dry conditions. IFR clouds on the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, but the southeast coast here, mostly sunny. There's some low clouds that aren't showing up on this image here that show up better on the surface map here as that darker area. That's the low clouds, darker because they're warmer temperature. Of course, the higher clouds, infrared, shows up as whiter. And there is some a marine layer there right along the coastline, but inland areas rising into the 70s in some locations, all the way from Skagway into Juneau, on down to the south here. Stewart, warm spot, 79 degrees this afternoon at about 3 o'clock. Otherwise, not so warm, a lot cloudier, and temperatures in the 40s here. South central Alaska into Kodiak with that trough swinging in with the rainfall amounts anywhere from about 1/3 of an inch at Kodiak to a little bit more in some areas of western Prince William Sound. More showers back here to the west, and then dry to the north. And out to the west there, Chignik picked up about 1 inch of rain in the last 24 hours with that moisture streaming back to the west, and they had a fair amount at King Cove as well. But again, the winds, the gradient here, just north, mostly north of the Tanana Valley, but still seeing those gusts 25 both at Tanana and Fairbanks, and pretty gusty up here. Could have been even higher gusts than that, maybe 35 miles an hour up over the northeast. But generally light winds here across much of the state. Picking up though, probably good small craft advisories in there toward the far western Aleutians, if not even minimum gales. And for tonight, that whole system, again, slides off to the southeast, and that band retreats back to the west with this northeast flow, high pressure over northern Kamchatka. Trough out through here, which is that one that's tracking southwestward, shows up much better aloft. Just a weak impression at the surface there, but that'll be pushing off to the southwest, and that's what's keeping this system to the south. Scattered showers over the Bering Sea to the eastern Aleutians, a little more general rainfall condition for the Alaska Peninsula. Wet Kodiak Island, wet North Gulf Coast, up into Prince William Sound. Look for a decrease in the rain over Cook Inlet, especially northern Cook Inlet, and some scattered showers along this trough boundary up to the north, which really just separates the chillier air back to the north and northwest from the milder air off to the east and southeast, especially down over the southeast coast. But that very weakening front here will kind of thicken up that marine layer, and could see some areas of light rain or sprinkles, drizzle here along the south coast, possibly getting in over Prince of Wales Island tonight. Low clouds possible, especially over any of the inlet areas next to the water there. And then for tomorrow, that should improve and go partly and mostly sunny again in the afternoon, with temperatures pushing back up at least into the 60s. And the original front here really washing out along the coast, especially the North Gulf Coast, just leaving a little bit of moisture behind. Rain showers, but a lot lighter than what we've seen. And should be basically a dry day for much of the Cook Inlet, Madanuska, Susitna Valley, with some showers over toward the Alaska Range. Dry, mild here over the eastern interior, maybe pushing in the lower 70s over toward the border. This area of rainfall actually expands as it shifts to the northwest, up over the Koyukuk into the Kobuk Valley, and then showers back to the southwest. Isolated over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, Susitna Valley, isolated showers. Dry northern Bering Sea, northeast winds 15, maybe 20, 25 miles an hour. And looks like along the Brooks Range could be a little gusty through the passes, but nothing too serious. Northerly winds 15 to 25 out over the Aleutians, with scattered showers from the Pribilofs to the Fox Islands. Outlook for this for Sunday, low clouds, fog, flurries possible, north slope on out to the Arctic coast. Best chance possibly the Arctic coast. South of the mountains though, partly and mostly sunny here for the Kotzebue Sound area, Noatak Valley, Selawik, on in across the Kobuk, Koyukuk, Upper Yukon Valley areas, on down to Fairbanks, looking pretty good with less wind. Partly to mostly sunny skies, isolated showers the Alaska Range, and then rainfall again for Kodiak Island, with the next system tracking up 985 millibar low south of, fairway south of Sitkinak, with that front easterly flow. Looks pretty wet for Sunday. Another trough, more rain for the North Gulf Coast into western Prince William Sound, northward of the Coast Range, possibly Valdez, increasing Alyeska, Turnagain Arm, possibly the Chugach Mountains, maybe a dry day for Susitna, Madanuska Valley, and definitely cooler, more cloudier, cooler, and showery over the southern panhandle, with a pretty good chance of rain in the north. And for temperatures for lows tonight, mid to upper 40s there for the southeast coast, lower to mid 40s southern Alaska, south central Alaska here, lower 40s out toward Bristol Bay. Mid 40s generally for the central interior, cooling into the upper 20s Brooks Range, upper teens along the Arctic coast. Highs for tomorrow afternoon, mid 60s to lower 70s here. Eagle could hit 72 tomorrow, and 60 back toward Tanana, and then cooling into the 50s to the upper 40s here out toward the coast. Lower 40s, Nunivak Island, Pribilofs near freezing for St. Lawrence Island and Shishmaref. Upper 20s for the Arctic coast and North Slope. Low temperatures the following morning, Sunday morning, in the mid to upper 40s again for the Panhandle. Lower to mid 40s here, southern Alaska. Up lower 20s in the Arctic coast, and back into the 60s and lower 70s over the interior for the highs on Sunday afternoon.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Starting out with some IFR up here north of the Brooks Range, with marginal VFR for the Arctic coast. A lot of VFR here through the central interior early on, but IFR eastern slopes, western Alaska Range, marginal up to the central range there. Big area IFR sitting out in the middle of the Bering Sea, otherwise marginal for the Aleutians. IFR for part of the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, southern Kenai Peninsula, and in the low clouds here along the southeast coast. In the afternoon, Lucy IFR here, but some marginal VFR hanging with the low clouds there along the central and south coast. VFR, eastern interior Copper River Basin down to about the coast range. IFR, western Prince William Sound, southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula through the Barren Islands, east side of Kodiak Island there, and marginal for Bristol Bay. Swath IFR here along that boundary from the Nolado Hills up to the central Brooks Range, it looks like in there, with marginal VFR for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And for Sunday morning, IFR back in the north slope there with marginal for the central eastern Arctic coast. VFR holding here over the interior areas. Looks like marginal, though, into the northern Koyukuk Valley, possibly northern Yukon, and maybe even the Kobuk Valley there on out to Kotzebue Sound southward, across the Seward Peninsula, Nunivak Island, Pribilofs, on down across all of the Aleutians. And IFR here, Kodiak Island, again, southeast flow, and that's going to keep it along the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula. And then for the afternoon, that holds there through the afternoon on Sunday. Good VFR in the interior, marginal up north, narrow band IFR here, Bering Strait southward, just east of the Pribilofs, just west of Nunivak Island, and marginal for most of the Aleutians with some patchy areas of VFR. And marginal VFR in the increase here along the coast and over the northern two-thirds of the Panhandle. And for Anaktuvuk, marginal VFR becoming marginal with a band of moisture lifting northward. So that'll be the same trend for Adigan as well. And Lake Clark and Merrill look pretty marginal throughout the day tomorrow, as does rainy. And windy, though, starting out marginal becoming VFR. And for Isabel, marginal VFR becoming VFR. Mentasta will be VFR. And Tanita also looks good. VFR flying conditions there. Portage, marginal VFR, IFR in the eastern entrance. Could be IFR all the way across, but lowest conditions will be on the east side. And Chilkoot and White, good VFR. For the freezing levels here, about 8,000 feet here, big upper level ridge over western Canada, warm air aloft and the warm temperatures associated with it at the surface. 8,000 feet, and then trying to bulge in here to the central interior, about 6,000 to 8,000 feet, 4,000 feet on out to the west, 2,000 feet Brooks Range, Arctic coast, and about 4,000 or 5,000 feet here, kind of a cool area back through here, western Bering at about 2,000 feet. Icing, could be some enhanced icing here of the considerable moderate rime variety due to the terrain with that southeast flow there for the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, also along the Alaska Range. Otherwise, kind of also a mixed icing condition here back down to the southwest, and then along this boundary here through the central interior. Jet stream showing a big trough out here from a couple actual lows here. This one slowly dropping south, take a turn to the southeast. This other one kind of sliding eastward, and there's good south to north flow here, only at about 40 to 50 knots. Two separate bands, one here cutting across the southeast coast. The other one continues to carry moisture right on up to the North Gulf Coast. Otherwise, the Pacific jet stays well to the south. And for the 9,000-foot winds, southeast, east-southeast 25 knots coming up to Kodiak and the Kenai Peninsula, actually right on inland here in the Copper River Basin, there to the Alaska Range, but very light under this trough axis through here. East 20, Central Arctic coast, northeast 15 to 20, turning north 20 for the Aleutians. And out along the southeast coast, could see up to 25 knots there on the south coast, otherwise about 15, maybe 20. And then looking at 3,000 feet at this level, we've got a low here over the Yukon, 10 to 15 out of the southeast, pick up to about 25 there as you approach Cape Yakataga, 20 knots into Kodiak, 15 here across south central Alaska, northeast 20 to 25, maybe even 30 knots, western Brooks Range up in that area, northeast 20 to 25, turning north down across the Aleutians, 15-knot winds over the Alaska Peninsula, not too bad, southeast 20 into Kodiak. And for turbulence, could be some isolated moderate chop there, western Brooks Range and areas across the North Gulf Coast into the western Alaska Range.
We have cleaned over 1,500 miles of shoreline now.
Basically, it comes down to just human muscle. I mean, we use chainsaws and knives.
We find stuff from like Russia and China and Korea, Vietnam, Malaysia. It really doesn't matter where it comes from. We all just have to clean it out.
Our goal right now in the next 10 or 11 days before the end of this year is just to see how much we can collect before we get to remove it.
What you see on the beach is a fraction of what's out there. You can pretty much break it down into 3 or 4 things. Water bottles, a lot of water bottles, styrofoam, fishing nets, fishing buoys. And that's 99% of what you find on the beach. Basically just go along with chainsaws and muscle and get the garbage, put it in sacks, and then from there we haul it up above the log jam so it's out of any heavy surf or winter storms if it's gonna stay there for the year, and put it in super sacks. So yeah, we just progressively work down the coast, just day in and day out.
We have like daily goals for ourselves that, like, if we're working at a pretty good rate, we like to keep on pace with about, like, I don't know, about 20 to 25 super sacks a day. So this is pile 102, and in this pile right now we have 2 super sacks and 1 set of buoys. June 23rd here, this is what we've done today. We're up to 25 super sacks on the day, and I think for now we'll call it and just keep cleaning until tomorrow.
My name is Hannah, and I represent a organization in Japan called Japan Environmental Action Network. With over 20 people working together to clean up the beach, this is amazing. Like, we all need to work together to, clean up the beach as much as possible. So like every single time I go back to Japan, I talk to the fishermen, and the fishermen's like, it's a joke, but they're like, if you find any buoy with my logo, you gotta bring it back, and it's like always looking out for that stuff.
The crew's awesome. I mean, we're all skiers or snowboarders, and we're all friends. I mean, we're all good friends. My dad started it. He's the man behind the desk. He makes the ball roll for sure. He works hard. He doesn't give up easy, which is good.
This stuff is uplifted quite a ways during the earthquake. Well, I think my bag's about full already. Yeah. I'm gonna take a quick look back in here, see what else is back here. The thing about marine debris is it's kind of a hidden problem. Unless you're out there, especially on these remote beaches that are so heavily impacted, people don't see it. I remember probably a good 20 years ago, I was out on the outside of Montague Island, flew out there, and I was just utterly astounded by all the garbage out there. You walk out there and you wade through this stuff and you go, this isn't right, this shouldn't happen.
I think a lot of it's just awareness. I mean, I've been boating out here for a long time, and I wasn't even aware of how extensive the marine debris problem is out here, but it's a consumer world out there for sure. I mean, I don't know where people's values are, I guess, but mine is you got to kind of have a little bit of respect for the environment, and considering we live in it, especially in Alaska. I mean, a lot of people like the outdoors and like to be part of the outdoors. That's why they live here, and it's they don't necessarily want to see it trashed.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. A little bit less ice here north of the Seward Peninsula in the Bering Strait, and still having some strips break off of the pack ice here, the heavier pack ice through here into this open water area, which is open water means less than 1/10 ice coverage, as opposed to the sea ice free, which is no ice at all. And that's going to continue for the next several days, very slow melting going on north of the Bering Strait. And for the coastal water forecast along the southeast coast, southeast winds 10 to 15, fairly light there, 6-foot seas, north coast, same speed, same direction, 10 to 15 knots, seas 7 feet. And south 15 for northern Lynn Canal and Glacier Bay, south 10 Stevens Passage, south 20 for Clarence Strait and 4-foot seas. Next day, Sunday, south 10 for Clarence Strait, 15 from the south for Stevens Passage, southerlies at 20, Lynn Canal, southeast at 27-foot seas on the south coast. Small craft advisories now, that next front pushing in on the north coast, seas building to 9 feet. Prince William Sound, look for east winds tomorrow at 25 knots with 4-foot seas. North Gulf Coast, southeast at 20, seas 8 feet. And southeast 25 for the Barren Islands with 9-foot seas, and then those winds turn easterly into Kamishak Bay at 25. South of the Forelands, northeast at 20, northern Cook Inlet, northeast at 15, and then the next day, pick it up to 20 knots here in the north, and then southern Cook Inlet, northeast 25, so small craft advisories for Sunday. Small crafts continue for Kamishak Bay with those seas up to 10 feet, east 30 knots here for the Barren Islands, North Gulf Coast easterlies at 25 to 30 knots with 9 to 10-foot seas, east at 20 with 4-foot seas for Prince William Sound. Shelikof Strait east at 20 tomorrow at 7-foot seas, southeast 25, 9-foot seas there for the east side of Kodiak Island, Fognak Island, and southeast 20 from Sitkinak to Castle Cape. Pacific side of the peninsula, northeast 15, Bering Sea side, northeast at 20, 15 knots out of the northeast for Bristol Bay. Outlook for Sunday, northwest here on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, while the south side will be out of the north at 20 with 6-foot seas, northeast 20 knots up towards Sitkinak, Bristol Bay north at 20. Small craft advisories here for, excuse me, Shelikof Strait, winds 25 knots, seas up to 10 feet. Western Aleutians tomorrow, northeast 25 and seas 9 to 11 feet, highest in the far western zone. 15 to 20 here for the central Aleutians out of the northeast, and northeast winds at about 15 with 4 to 6-foot seas for the Fox Islands. And for Sunday, we've got northwest at 25 here, basically from Adak all the way over to Unalaska Island, 25 knots north or north-northwest, probably northwest or north, with seas running from 6 to 9 feet. Out to the west, lighter winds, 6 to 8 foot seas with those winds 15 to 20. Southwest coast here, out of Kuskokwim Bay, northeast 15 to the Pribilofs, north of Nunivak Island, northerlies at 20 to St. Lawrence Island, and Norton Sound, northeast 20 for St. Matthew Island, east at 15 for Norton Sound on Sunday, northerlies at 20, St. Lawrence Island down to Nunivak Island, and also south of Nunivak Island, northwest 25 for the Pribilofs with seas running at 8 feet, northwest at 20 with 6 foot seas for St. Matthew Island. Brisk wind advisories here, eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, east at 25, east 20 on the central coast, back into small craft advisories, a pretty stiff wind, east at 38 foot seas here, all the way down to Cape Thompson to the Bering Strait north at 20. Those turn northeast at 20 in that area on Sunday. Still 30 knots here along the western capes, east 25, small craft advisories western Arctic coast, still 20 on the central coast, and brisk wind advisories continue through the weekend here for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. For tonight, again, maybe some flurries, areas of low clouds and fog, especially the east side, maybe the north slope. Isolated rain and snow showers here in the northwest. Otherwise, a little more shower activity possible along that trough. And areas of rain here, Cook Inlet, for the southern Kuskokwim Valley, necessarily along the Alaska Range, showers to Bristol Bay, back to the west showers. Areas of rain continue, stays wet, Kodiak Island, southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula into Prince William Sound, with chance of low clouds, fog, and drizzle along the southern coast. That'll become partly sunny tomorrow. Rain here with this trough over areas in the northwest. Next system coming up spreads rain into Kodiak Island on Sunday, with not too bad on the winds, except here in the Gulf. Again, small craft advisories for the eastern North Gulf Coast.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.